Has the Fed's inflation plan hit a speed bump? Let's talk about that today. Welcome everybody to SRT Live. I am your host, Sean, with the Sean Richard Mortgage team. Thank you so much for joining me today. And we have had an unbelievably bumpy ride for the last couple of weeks. We're going to dive into it a little bit today. And so as always, let's start with the week in review. So last week we had a slew of economic data come out. Let's start with the NAHB Housing Index. So this is the National Association of Home Builders Housing Index. And this essentially is like a confidence survey for builders. What builders think that they're going to, how builders expect the market to go, the new home building environment to go over the next 6, 9, 12 months. And so this is rated on a scale of 0 to 100. Anything over 50 is optimistic. Anything under 50 is considered a little bit on the pessimistic side. So builders came back at a rating of 42 on this survey. So still a little bit not so optimistic, but this is definitely improvement from the previous month's reading of 35. So we're moving back upwards. Builders are maybe starting to feel a little bit more optimistic about what's going on in the new construction market. So we're going to continue to watch that month over month to see where that goes. We also got the New York Manufacturing Survey. Now, this is an important one because this kind of gives us an insight into the start of the process of businesses, right? Manufacturing is where so many things start. And by the time they make it to market with finished goods and services, you know, we're now at lagging indicators. So manufacturing kind of gives us a little bit of a leading indicator. And so we came in significantly better than market analysts expected. Last month, manufacturing survey showed that we were down 32.9%. Now, this was obviously for the New York region. And the expectation was this was going to come in at a negative 18% reduction. However, it only came in at a negative 5.8% decrease. And so this is good news. This is showing that the economy is staying relatively resilient. So from an economic standpoint, that's a positive. Now, in the perspective of looking at, okay, are we heading into a deep recession? You know, I would say that this definitely puts us out of, this gives us hope that we're not going to have any significant recession, but just one of the many indicators that we watch. Now, in housing news, we got two critical sets of data points last week. We've got building permits, which is permits issued on new construction projects. And then we also got housing starts, which is new housing starts on single family houses, apartments. So every unit counts as one start. So if you have like a 4-plex or an 8-plex, it counts as 4 starts or 8 starts. So in building permits, this is registered as an annualized pace. So the previous reading was at 1.337 million building permits issued on an annual pace. That ticked up ever so slightly to 1.339 million. This was a little bit below expectations of 1.35 million. So we're seeing that kind of stay relatively steady. More importantly and more specific to our housing industry is the housing starts. And again, this is starts of single family units. So we got a 1.309 million annualized pace on housing starts. And this is a really important metric because housing starts is really going to lead us to future indicators such as existing home sales, down the road, new home sales. This also plays a role because it allows us to get a feel for home construction, whether it's apartment or single family, versus household formations. And household formations, anytime a new household is formed, that could be through a number of different means. It could be children moving out and forming their own household, individuals getting married. So those are all things that go into how households are formed. And so the importance of the housing starts number, since it's not specific to like actual homes that we're going to see on the real estate market in the MLSs, is it lets us know, okay, if we are forming, you know, X number of family formations or household formations nationally, but only Y number of single family homes are being created, we're creating a deficit. And so that's exactly what's going on. We're on an annualized pace of housing starts at just over 1.3 million, but household formations are currently on an annualized pace of 1.9 million. So what does that tell us about the state of our housing inventory? It means that over time, we're going to continue to see supply shortages rear its ugly head. We've all seen it over the last several years, and this just tells us that we're likely to continue to see a healthy level, or I say an unhealthy level, of supply shortages in real estate going forward. Now, that translates to higher home prices. So we'll talk more about that here in a moment. So housing starts came out 1.309 million. This was down from the previous reading of 1.337 million. So shrinking just a little bit. We also got some inflation data last week. We got PPI, which is, this is inflation at the wholesale level. Now, one thing to note on inflation at the wholesale level is this doesn't always get passed onto the consumer. This doesn't always end up in our CPI, which is our consumer price index. And that's because it could be businesses that choose not to pass all of the increased cost onto the consumer. It could be businesses that are in a position where they don't have the price flexibility to pass the cost onto the consumer. But it is a good indicator of the direction of inflation. So as with the previous inflation report in CPI, the producer price index inflation numbers came in much higher than expected. Month over month, we got a 0.7% increase compared to market analyst expectations of 0.4%. But this is up pretty significantly from the December reading, which was a negative 0.2% decrease in month over month inflation. Annually, on a year over year basis, PPI or wholesale inflation was up 6% from last year. Now that's down from the previous reading of 6.5%, but still well over the market analyst expectations of 5.4%. So although we are still seeing inflation decline, the pace at which it's declining has definitely slowed, and that's causing concern for the Fed. So we're going to talk about that more in a minute as well. Now, we also, as we do every week, got jobless claims, and this is unemployment claims, and it's broken down into two categories. Number one is going to be the initial jobless claims, which is individuals filing for unemployment for the first time, and then continuing claims, which is individuals renewing their unemployment benefits. And the unemployment claims are important because this really tells us part of the equation of the health of the labor market. Right now, the Fed is concerned at the tightness of the labor market. And until we see that ease, we're not going to have a whole lot of relief in inflation because of things like wage pressured inflation. And so jobless claims tells us how many people are filing for unemployment. And if that number is really low, then we're seeing companies hold on or retain employees, or they're reducing hiring instead of laying people off. So these are week over week numbers. So last week report for the prior week was 194,000 new unemployment claims. Now, this was below expectations of 200,000 and relatively in line with the previous reading of 195,000. But for comparison, last year, we saw this number climb up into the mid 200s, 240, 250, 260,000 unemployment claims. And we've simmered back down into under 200,000 until we start to see this climb, which I know not great for our economy, but it is going to mean that we're in a tighter labor market. The the continued jobless claims came in at 1.696 million versus an expectation of 1.695. So kind of right in line. It did dip a little bit from the 1.68 previous reading the week before, but we're staying relatively flat in continuous claims. All right, so that was the week in review for last week. Let's dive into this week's information. We've got some gangbuster information in the housing market. Today, we got existing home sales, and I'm going to spend a little extra time on this because this is really important. If you're a real estate agent watching this, if you're a home buyer watching this, this is critical information because this is the state of our current housing market. Existing home sales make up about 90% of our housing market. So this is going to be right in line. This is going to give us a good nose to the grindstone of what's going on. So existing home sales for January of this year came in at 4 million on an annualized pace. This was just below the previous reading at 4.02 and a little bit below market analyst expectations of 4.05. But let's dive into the numbers a little bit further because it tells another story. So month over month, this was down 0.7% nationally. However, they do break it out by region, and the South region, which is where Texas is located, actually had increase in home sales, existing home sales by 1.1%. So it's really easy to look at the headline information that we're typically going to see in the media and say, oh my goodness, the housing market's not doing so great. Although there are areas of the country that are declining and struggling a little bit more, there are markets that are having success, and the South region, especially here in Texas, is one of those. Now, the median home price across the country rose. Now, median means half the homes sold below this price, half the homes sold above this price. This is not the average home price. So the median home price rose 1.3% month over month to $359,000. What's crazy about that is this is the 131st straight month that has increased. Now, home prices rising is obviously a big part of that, but that also means that we're seeing more buyers on the north side of that number than we are on the south side of that number. And that there's a lot of metrics that go into that. Home builders at the price points that they're building, where obviously the appreciation in homes has contributed significantly to that. But that number has risen for over 10 straight years, 131 months. Unbelievable. And then a little bit of note on existing inventory. So existing inventory did rise year over year to about 980,000 existing homes in the market. So at an annualized pace of 4 million homes, that's about 2.9 months worth of inventory on the market. And although that may seem like a reasonable level, a typical real estate market is going to be closer to 5 or 6 months worth of inventory. But another point to contend with is that not all of those 980,000 homes are actively for sale. Some of those are already under contract in a contingent pending category. And so the actual number of homes on the market is quite less than at 980,000. So the 2.9 months of inventory can be a little bit misleading because that's not truly what we have available for somebody going out and starting to look for a new home today. All right. So that was the information today. Looking ahead the rest of this week, we've got the Federal Open Market Committee, the Fed. Their meeting minutes come out tomorrow. And this is from their last meeting in January. And this is unlikely, in my opinion, to be very market moving. We've had some other more impactful information come out since the last Fed meeting. And I think the meeting minutes, which normally can be market moving, are going to be kind of already baked into everything that's going on. The Fed does meet again at the end of this month, February 28th and March 1st. So we're going to get another Fed meeting with more information on what they're going to do with the Fed funds rate here in the next couple of weeks. On Thursday, as always, we get jobless claims. We also get the second reading of GDP for the fourth quarter. So as a reminder, after the fourth quarter ends, we get a January, February, and March reading of GDP. So this is the second of three readings. And then on Friday, pretty important, we get PCE, which is personal consumption expenditure. And this is a big inflation report. Now we kind of have an idea of what's coming down the pipe because we've already seen what the CPI, Consumer Price Index, and the PPI, Producer Price Index report have shown. So there's a good chance that the PCE report is going to follow suit with those past reports. However, what's critical to know about the PCE report is that it is the Fed's favorite measure of inflation. So they're going to be looking extremely closely at this. And with the Fed meeting right around the corner, this has the potential to influence what they do at their upcoming meeting. So that comes out on Friday. We also get new home sales on Friday. So another component of our current market. And then we get the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment. And that's just a good gauge of how the country is feeling about our current economic status, where things in the country are heading over the next few months. It's just something that we kind of keep an eye on to gauge kind of the optimism of the average consumer. So those are the data points that are coming out later this week. Now, I want to take just a moment to tell you a little bit about what we're focused on going forward as I work to wrap up today. And the biggest one is the market and mindset shift. And so let me tell you a little bit about what I mean by that. So we have seen inflation come down a little bit. And because of that, we've seen interest rates decline a little bit as well from the peak that we saw in third quarter of 2022 last year. In addition to that, inventory has grown some year over year, but it still remains low. So I think we're seeing a mindset shift of some buyers to realizing that this is the new normal. We're not going to see a housing crash. We're not going to see rates plummet back down to 2.5%, 3.5%. And so consumers are starting to realize, hey, we might be in this position for a while. And many buyers are starting to realize that the sooner I start building the equity, the more equity I'm going to have. I've used this analogy so many times before, but it's very much, buying a home is very much like planting a tree. The best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. So that way today, you've got a full-grown tree. The second best time to plant a tree is today. So that way, 20 years from now, you can have a full-grown tree. Buying a home, same exact methodology. The sooner you make that purchase, the sooner you start building the equity and be able to build wealth through real estate. So very much a mindset shift, I think, is coming down the pipeline. And to make things even more compelling is we're starting to see the market heat back up. We're starting to see multiple offers be a little bit more prevalent. We're also starting to see the occasional home go over list price. As a personal anecdote, I had a client that listed their home last Thursday. They were under contract by Saturday at $30,000 over list price with multiple offers. And so we're starting to see a shift back. Now, this isn't every home on the market that's going to run into that. My opinion is that we're going to see this happen with homes that are priced correctly and that are market ready. Their condition is in turnkey condition. The buyers are not going to go in saying, oh my gosh, we've got to fix so many things in this home. A year ago, in our crazy hot market, didn't really matter too much about the condition. It was just a matter of trying to get that home locked down. It's going to be a little bit of a different market this time around. The condition is going to matter a little bit more. Pricing appropriately is going to matter a little bit more, but we are going to see the market heat up, and we're already starting to see signs of that. So I believe that the days of getting a home at list price may be numbered. Now, we've had a great run. It's been about 90 to 120 days that we've had a great little window for buyers. And if you're a home buyer, take some deep consideration into what's going on right now and make sure that you decide that if you're going to get in a home, you want to get in with a little bit lower purchase price, regardless of where interest rates are. Interest rates can be refinanced. A purchase price cannot be lowered later on. So that, my friends, is what I have for you today. I want to say thank you so much for joining me on this episode of SRT Live. If you are watching in our private Facebook group, thank you so much for being an amazing part of our community. If you're checking us out on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that way you can get up-to-date real estate and economic information at the tip of your fingertips. The tip of your fingertips, something like that. Again, I'm Sean with the Sean Richard Mortgage Team. Thank you so much for joining me. Have an incredible rest of your week.